It's 12:14 p.m. on October 11th, 2021. A home security camera in Santee, California, located just north of San Diego's Gillespie Field Airport, captures an airplane rapidly emerging from the bottom of a cloud base, nose down in a steep bank turn. The airplane spirals into a residential neighborhood. Billowing red flames erupt on the camera as the airplane comes to rest in a backyard engulfed in fire. The accident kills the pilot and one person on the ground and seriously injures two other people near the crash site. Suddenly, their families and the community are left with the troubling question: why did this happen? Earlier that morning, the pilot of November 7022 Golf, a twin Cessna 340, is ready to depart Yuma International Airport in Arizona on a short flight to San Diego's Montgomery-Gibbs Executive Airport in California. He has filed an instrument flight plan via the Bard and Imperial Vortex at a cruising altitude of 10,000 feet MSL. The pilot is very familiar with the route. During the preceding months, he has made the approximately 45-minute trip many times using his Cessna 340 to commute back and forth from his work in Yuma to his home in San Diego. The weather is fair with light southwesterly winds at about 7 to 8 knots when November 7022 Golf departs at 11:22 a.m. An air met is in effect for low-altitude turbulence and strong surface winds over southwestern California along the flight route. The San Diego winds and temperatures aloft forecast, valid between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. local time, predicts 15-knot winds from 230 degrees at 3,000 feet and 24-knot winds from 270 degrees at 6,000 feet. When the flight approaches the vast mountain ranges east of San Diego that extend north to south below the flight's path, strong surface winds in the area cause the Cessna to experience moderate turbulence as it overflies the mountains. At 11:58 a.m. local time, the twin Cessna pilot contacts air traffic control.
November 702 to Golf, checking in 10,000, information is here, Montgomery. Cessna 7022 Golf, Scout approach, vectors ILS, runway 28 right at Montgomery, and expect runway 23. We'll expect runway 23, vectors for the ILS for 28 right.
Meanwhile, the automated weather observation at Montgomery Airport indicates marginal visual flight rules conditions with southerly winds at 10 knots, 10 miles visibility, a 1,700-foot broken ceiling, and a 2,800-foot overcast. The temperature and dew point are 19 and 14 degrees Celsius. ATC issues the first descent instruction and a heading change for November 7022 Golf, followed by 2 more heading changes and 4 altitude step-downs. 11 minutes later, at 12:09 p.m., November 7022 Golf reaches 3,900 feet MSL, and the controller provides vectors to join the final approach. The pilot acknowledges ATC's instruction, but unsure if he's cleared for the ILS approach to runway 28 right, he queries the controller, who confirms the clearance.
Your 22 Golf, you're 4 miles from Penny. Descend and maintain 2,800 until established on the localizer. Clear to ILS, runway 28 right, circle to land, runway 23.
Clear for the ILS 28 right, for runway 23 to the Golf.
Yes, sir. Descend and maintain 2,800 until established on the localizer, and then you are clear for the ILS approach.
Localizer to Golf.
The pilot of November 7022 Golf appears to be getting behind the airplane as his workload intensifies. He's now 4 miles from the final approach fix for runway 28 right. At the same time, the flight experiences moderate to strong winds out of the west-southwest, that require heading adjustments to intercept the localizer during the descent in IMC. At 12:11 p.m., November 7022 Golf has descended to 2,550 feet MSL, although the airplane is still not established on the localizer. Instead, it has drifted away from the localizer course when the controller advises the pilot of traffic.
Air 22 Golf, traffic 2 o'clock, 3 miles southbound, 5,000 descending, 4,000 to C-130. They are restricted above you. Caution, right turn left.
Copy to the Golf.
Air 22 Golf, looks like you're drifting right of course. Are you correcting?
I'm correcting for 22 Golf.
About 25 seconds later, the pilot says,
And Institute Golf clear for runway 23.
but the twin Cessna continues drifting right of the localizer and has now descended to 2,175 feet MSL, which is 625 feet below ATC's minimum vectoring altitude.
22 Golf, you're not even tracking the localizer. I need you to fly. Actually, cancel approach clearance, climb and maintain 3,000. 22 Golf, climb immediately, maintain 3,000. Low altitude alert, minimum vectoring altitude in your area, 2,800.
Climbing 22 Golf.
At 12:12 p.m., November 7022 Golf has climbed to 3,550 feet MSL when the controller instructs the pilot to climb and maintain 3,800 feet MSL. The pilot responds.
3,800.
Seconds later, the controller issues instructions to turn right to a heading of 090 degrees for vectors to final, and the pilot responds.
090 Golf.
About another 30 seconds later, the controller again instructs the pilot to turn right to 090 degrees and to climb immediately and maintain 4,000 feet MSL. The pilot acknowledges the instructions, but the airplane heads to the north-northeast, descending to 2,500 feet MSL. About 3 seconds later, the controller warns the pilot that it looks like he's descending.
Okay, it looks like you're descending, sir. I need to make sure you are climbing, not descending.
2 Golf, climbing.
Air 22 Golf, say altitude.
2,500 to the Golf.
Air 22 Golf, low altitude alert. Climb immediately. Climb the airplane, maintain 5,000. Expedite climb. Climb the airplane, please. Air 22 Golf, just level out the plane, or the heading, and climb the airplane up to 5,000 when you can, sir. Traffic alert, November 22 Golf, 10 o'clock and a half mile, 1,500. You appear to be descending again, sir. Are you, say altitude? Cessna 7022 Golf, SoCal approach.
But there's no response from November 7022 Golf. The twin Cessna descends in a steep banked right turn.
Tower, an aircraft just crashed about a half mile in front of us into the houses.
The 1,566-hour instrument-rated pilot held a first-class medical certificate and a commercial pilot certificate for single-engine and multi-engine airplanes. In November of 2020, the pilot upgraded the twin Cessna's instrument panel with an integrated Garmin avionics suite. The system included a GI 275 AI, a GFC 600 autopilot, a GTN 650 and 750 XI GPS Navcom MFD, and a G500 TXI flight display with PFD and MFD functionality. Such a setup promised ample instrument backup and enhanced situational awareness for a pilot familiar and proficient with the system. The NTSB did not find documentation of specific training on the new avionics. Although recommended, such training is not required. However, since upgrading its panel, the pilot had logged 153.4 hours in November 7022 Golf, including 8.2 hours of actual instrument time and 44 instrument approaches. The pilot completed a flight review and instrument proficiency check in November 7022 Golf on August 27, 2021. His logbook remarks also indicate that he flew multiple practice approaches to runway 28 right, but there was no mention of circle-to-land maneuvers following an instrument approach that an instrument proficiency check requires. Upon examination of the airframe and engines, the National Transportation Safety Board ruled out pre-existing anomalies that would have hindered normal flight operation. Also, in their final report, the NTSB did not mention any avionics malfunction. The board concluded the probable cause to be loss of control due to spatial disorientation. Although on the day of the accident the weather in Yuma was benign, the 11 a.m. surface analysis chart showed a low-pressure system over central California with a cold front extending to the southwest into Southern California. 10 to 15-knot winds were indicated over Southern California, with stronger winds of 25 knots in the vicinity of the front. Earlier that morning, at 8:29 a.m., the area forecast for extreme southwestern California, including San Diego County, warned of low clouds overspreading the area and extending well inland. Southwest to westerly winds at that time were already gusting 35 miles per hour or more over some mountain areas. About 30 miles north of the route, a caution box on the Los Angeles sectional chart warns pilots of the potential for extreme turbulence and severe up and down drafts during high wind conditions in the mountains. And indeed, based on flight-aware tracking, November 7022 Golf had some erratic airspeed fluctuations in cruise that would be consistent with the flight experiencing turbulence as the airplane crossed the mountains. In addition, the 12 p.m. graphic turbulence chart indicated moderate to severe turbulence for the area. So when the pilot began his descent from cruise flight, he likely experienced some disorientation flying in turbulent conditions while complying with multiple heading and altitude changes. The pilot may not have fully grasped the circle-to-land procedures that would have required him to intercept the localizer and be established on the approach for runway 28 right. At the final approach fix, he would then have descended to no lower than the circling minimum descent altitude of 920 feet MSL, and upon visually acquiring runway 23 during the descent, he would have broken off the approach to join a left base for runway 23. It is possible that the pilot had trouble properly programming and activating the avionics in turbulent conditions when ATC advised him of the approach to expect. That could explain why he got behind the airplane during the descent to intercept the localizer. As it drifted right of the localizer, November 7022 Golf had descended to 2,175 feet MSL. This put the airplane under the overcast, but still above the broken ceiling in marginal visual conditions, a situation that can be treacherous. It's likely that the pilot could glimpse the ground as he flew in and out of the clouds, prompting the strong desire to descend under the clouds into VFR conditions, break off the approach, and fly to runway 23. Unfortunately, it appears the pilot did not recognize that he was getting behind the airplane. He might have otherwise asked ATC for an initial heading and altitude that would allow him to get oriented and stabilize the airplane after the approach was canceled and before being vectored for a climb back into IMC. Within a minute after canceling the approach, the controller instructed him to climb and expect vectors to re-intercept final. During that initial climb and turbulence, the pilot likely experienced fluctuating light conditions in and out of clouds that would have been extremely disorienting. Those conditions may have tempted him to seek attitude confirmation by looking outside rather than trusting his instruments. In the end, as the pilot continued into IMC, he perceived that the airplane was climbing when in reality it was descending. Within 8 seconds of experiencing these classic signs of spatial disorientation, the pilot sadly lost control of his airplane. In a typical year, there are roughly 15 weather-related fatal accidents caused by spatial disorientation that affect both instrument-rated and non-instrument-rated pilots. Spatial disorientation occurs when conflicting motion sensed by our inner ear triggers illusions that contradict our flight's true attitude. It's a sensation that can be hard to understand unless you've experienced it firsthand. To obtain that firsthand experience, pilots should consider a training session in a simulator that induces spatial disorientation. If we learn how to recognize the symptoms, we can take the following corrective actions. Immediately turn to your flight instruments for guidance. Keep head movements to a minimum. If autopilot equipped, use it to recover. Level the wings to recover from turn-induced spatial disorientation. Climb wings level to avoid obstacles and terrain. If you must bank and turn the aircraft, use a standard rate turn. Or in a fast-moving aircraft, use a half-standard rate turn or small bank angle. This tragic accident is a stark reminder of how dangerous spatial disorientation is in flight. It's vitally important to be able to identify spatial disorientation symptoms and act on them before they lead to loss of control.